Well, Owen Casey Stevens, I believe we're live.
That's the rumor.
That's what I'm hearing. Hi, Chris Lawson. Chris has been hunting around for some information about some related fantasy age stuff. Chris, we'll crack into your question a little bit later. Owen, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm doing well. I'm here in my bunker in the game room, feeling safe and secure and well illuminated.
Nice. You are very well illuminated. You really are. And I, of
When we
course,
built this bunker 20 years ago, we carefully, at the time, and this is what gaming was like 20 years ago, we wanted to make sure that the lights in here were bright enough to power solar calculators. That was the
nice.
goal.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now things have changed dramatically, but yeah. So, um, welcome to ThursdAGE, everybody. My name is Troy. I'm the disembodied voice that kind of hangs out in the background, and heckles everybody. It's a wonderful job. If you can ever get it, not mine particularly because I'll heckle you to death. But if you want, a job like this, I would say just, be charmless, and you get it, and then you get to hang out with people like Owen Casey Stevens, who is the nicest guy in the biz. That's the other thing I hear. And today we're talking about the Game Masters kit.
We are for Fantasy
Now,
Age.
for Fantasy Age, and I'm gonna be honest, as I am not yet a game master, I wasn't expecting to be as impressed as I was with the stuff inside. I mean, talk to me about the purpose.
So the Game Master's Kit is just there to make the job of being the Game Master easier, and it can do this in a number of ways. First of all, it is a potential physical visual barrier between your space on the real world tabletop and your players. And
Oh,
some people don't like that, and some people think that the classic ones, which are generally 11 inches too tall or portrait view, are too tall. This one is specifically done landscape, so it's easy to reach over, and you don't have the bottom of your mouth cut off by it. But it's also a great place that if you want to store miniatures that might be a surprise or have the full map of some encounter drawn out, you don't want the players to see it. But you don't have to use it that way. You can put it off to one side and it just becomes a visual backdrop. I have actually often had a side table where I will prop up the GM screen and then use it to hide anything that I need to pull out as a surprise later. But I do think the landscape is a better choice. That's one of the things that sort of evolved after the early aughts. The inside of it has a number of useful graphs and charts and labels and things that you might find yourself looking up often in the core rulebook. So you don't have to look them off. It's quick and easy to reference. And then for the Fantasy Age GM kit, we also have some play cards, which the GM can use, but you can also pass them around to other players so that things that they're going to reference on a regular basis are on these cards, and they can look at them and use them to figure out what they're doing quickly without having to go diving to the basic rulebook or possibly even have the basic rulebook out on the table.
I like it. So here's a question I have, Kit. Is there any way to use the GM screen all the time, like just to kind of affix it somehow, so you can just walk around and just have that thing in front of you, just block?
I mean, I had a friend that built what we call the GM Screen 2000, which is a 4-foot tall piece of solid oak furniture, which we change it as needed for various games. With Google Glass coming up as the face-wearing computer being more and more of a thing, I suspect you will have the option of having a screen that at the very least blocks other people from your point of view, even if you're not blocked from theirs.
I can see you. I can see you. I love it. So both Chris and Brian have said they love the cards. And I know we're diving into it, but should I go ahead and share the screen and you can kind of roll with it?
Yeah, share the screen. Share the screen.
Great.
We'll talk about some stuff. The Play A cards are a huge part of the Fantasy Age GM's kit. It's one of the things I think that makes it more successful than some GM screens. And it really goes to this having been built by people that are familiar with the process. So here we're looking at the first panel of the 3 outer panels. And I really wanted to mention this for 2 reasons, because generally speaking, people just say, oh, it's pretty, and move on. This can serve 2 great purposes, especially early in a Fantasy Age campaign. First, it's nice ambiance. It really is. They're effectively posters, right? And they give you some feel for what the aesthetic of that game is supposed to be. But another thing you can use them for is you can take these characters who are illustrated in a big way on these illustrations for the card, and you can say these are major NPCs that people encounter during the campaign. And the advantage of that is that if there's if that first guy with the knives is the lead of the Assassin's Guild and he's the major villain that everyone is going to try and kill, then when they first meet him, you can say, it looks like this guy right here, and everyone knows what that looks like. And in my experience, players will actually reference that picture while they're having a conversation. If they can't come up with his name, they'll just go, that guy that we hate so much.
That guy, yeah.
So it becomes a piece of character art. And obviously, if you play multiple campaigns with the same group over and over and over, you don't necessarily want to keep recycling this. But especially early on, you mentioned that you haven't been a GM yet. It's a sort of trick that can really help get people involved in a game super early on and take some of the narrative weight off you as a GM, right? So if their patron is the dwarf with the gun could be a bandit, the woman with the axe could be a patron or a local hero or an ancient legend or even a goddess that is here destroying a great beast. You can just take those things and make them a part of your game, and that visual element then gets put out and helps people remember what's going on and put it in their headspace the split second you put it out, even above and beyond its potential value as a barrier.
See, I like this because then you can also kind of use this guy as sort of the malevolent, aggressive Santa.
Absolutely. Yeah. He does look like malevolent, aggressive. I mean, maybe he's the Robin Hood of Santas, right? Once a year, he comes and steals presents from rich children. The other thing about him in particular is that the fact that he has a flintlock pistol drives home to people when they first see the screen, oh, there are guns in this game system, which there are a lot of fantasy games with a strong tradition of having firearms, but that's not everything. And sometimes people will come from a system that doesn't. Yeah, Chris says, what? It isn't a picture of Owen? I didn't say it wasn't a picture of Owen. It was a picture of an evil Santa. So
I like it. I do. I can't wait for the cosplay of Owen as the aggressive Santa.
Yeah, my next cosplay is probably going to be a character that my friend Steve Russell, who's sadly no longer with us, he based a character on me and got it illustrated. And I keep meaning to do that as cosplay because it should look perfect.
Agreed. Okay, so but that's not all. So we got some art.
Not least. That's just the pretty pictures on the outside of the screen.
Now you wanted to jump to from the images to the cards, I believe. Is that right?
I think the cards are sort of the thing that even people with some experience are going to be most surprised by how useful they are. So there's a series of cards, and the PDF version has all of the cards in the PDF, and a 10-page PDF. That's one of the 3 things you get. And it lists things like all of the combat stunts and all the spell stunts. And if we scroll down a bit, because the disembodied voices and all the exploration stunts, all of the social stunts. One of the great things about having all those stunts is that allows players to be looking at them and even pointing them to each other without having to reference a page number. And you get 2 of those cards in the physical version. You can print as many as you want, obviously, in the PDF version. But, and I mentioned this before, I love having PDFs of all the rule books. Weirdly, I love having a PDF of the GM's kit. Even though I've got a physical GM's kit, I went ahead and got a PDF version because I can have a tab open that has these things to it, so I don't have to go flipping through looking for the stunts. In addition to all of the stunts, scroll down a little further, Yeah, Ranger says it's not possible for me to overstate how useful these cards are. It also has things like what the accuracy focuses are, and intelligence focuses, communication focuses. Those are useful as both player and GM, because when you're trying to figure out what test to call for, right, you can say, well, it's obviously a perception test. But if you are the player and you haven't written down all of the different focuses because you just have perception, empathy, you can look and say, well, there's healing, there's searching, there's all these different tests. But if none of those focuses seem appropriate, then I will be able to more easily pitch, hey, can I make this a perception empathy test? Then there are the actions that has the major actions, the minor actions. Again, I cannot tell you how many players and even GMs I've dealt with who, for instance, don't know about things like the defend option for an action, or running, or healing, right? The healing rules are in the healing action, and that's here on this major action cards. So, and a bunch of people in the comments are talking about how great these cards are. I, as a employee of other companies, have brought this GM's kit to those other companies to meetings, and shown people, here are cards, this is the great part of this kit. And it has impacted how other companies' products are made, because it's amazingly useful. And being able to look at the major minor actions, right? It's a simple card. It's not a whole book. You can be looking at it, and as the fight's going, you can just reference the card. Then it also has right there the Fantasy Age combat tracker. There are lots of ways you can track combat. You can obviously use index cards and cycle through them. You can note it down on a computer. In the physical version, you can write on this with wet or dry erase, which is great. The one thing that this thing really encourages me to do, that as GM that I may not do otherwise, is track how many rounds of combat have gone on. Because that's a question that only gets asked every few game sessions, right? How many rounds has this thing been going on? And the other thing with those rounds of combat is that if someone casts a spell, you can make a note to yourself, okay, they cast that spell in round 4, it lasts a minute, it's 15-second round, so if it started in round 4, it will end on round 8, and that makes it super easy to track a lot of those durations. So even the combat tracker, super useful. Even if I don't use it, just having it there reminds me of things. And then here we have the rest of the major and minor actions, with the rules for grenades and flying combatants and minor actions.
Nice.
So those cards are super useful. And even if you have more players than cards, generally speaking, I find they get passed around, but they really speed up the game and they simplify quick reference. And there are groups for whom choosing stunts when someone gets stunt point becomes a communal activity, that the group gets together and they pick what's a good stunt. They will make suggestions. Ooh, you could do this, you could do that. Hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Do you want to help? And I'm not saying that's the only way to play the game at all, but there are people that love that as a interactive community part of the game. And if you don't have a rule book for everyone, that can be a pain. Stephen Jones just mentioned that he loves these at cons. Yeah, if you're the sort of person that likes to take these games and run them in other places, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a con, right? If you're going to a game day or you're going to a friend's house, having things that have the most useful rules on them that aren't the weight and space hog of a full rule book is super handy. So
that's nice.
I had thought that it might be a hard sell on how useful these cards are, but the comments that are being included sort of tell the story themselves. These are things that people use every game. I have had players who played Fantasy Age once, and I didn't bother to bring out the cards for that game. And by the next session, they had typed every single thing that is on those cards and printed it so they'd have them themselves. Chris Lawson notes that they're durable. Yeah, these aren't just pieces of paper. Obviously, with the electronic version, with the PDF, you can print as many as you want and pass them out to people. When I'm going to conventions, I will sometimes print them on just regular 8.5 by 11 typing paper, whatever, and have people take those home as a reminder of this game that they enjoyed, and then hopefully they'll go pick it up because it's one piece of paper, right? I wouldn't want to hand out a printed rule book, but a quick reference card from the GM's kit. I don't have a problem just handing that to people.
Well, here's the thing. I can't believe that everybody is so I was fascinated just because I wanted to learn more about, some of the resources that we've got for people to, sort of make the job of GMing easier, because it can be daunting, all the planning, all the stuff, and then game day, and you're like, what is this? Yeah, I'm forgetting a thing. So we put together a little code for everybody. Here's how you use this. It's ThursdALien 15, and it's going to have to be exactly as it looks. So ThursdALien 15, what you do is you add these items to your cart, and I will provide links in the chat.
It's greenroninstore.com if you haven't gone there before.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I do have some links for you. But you can add those to your cart, and then when it comes time to settle up, all you have to do is type in or paste the ThursdALien 15, and you will get 15% off, which I think is great. And you'll get it off the PDF or the print version, and that is, let me see where that little code is. There we go. That code will work for both of those, so you can add them both to your cart. They're pretty inexpensive too, for as useful a tool as I am now learning they are.
The physical kit is just a little under $20. Obviously, you would save some with the 15% off. The PDF is less than $4, and if you're GM who GMs with a computer, or you're a GM who prints stuff out in advance, I cannot recommend strongly enough spending the $4 for the PDF, even if you have the physical product. And I'll give you a few reasons why. First, as I have noted, I love being able to queue up rules in advance, and that works great for these because I don't have to go scrolling through looking for these important charts and stuff. But another thing that you can do is if you are running an NPC that you want to run quickly and easily, and you want them to have a specific flavor as an NPC, you can print out a stunt card for them. And in advance, you print it out on paper, take a highlighter, highlight like one 2-point stunt and one 5-point stunt, and those become the stunts for that character, and you can write their name on it, and then there's no thought process, right? Here's the card for that character. Oh, he's gotten 4 stunt points. Here's the 2-point stunt that he's going to use. He'll do that. If he can, he'll use that twice, and depending on what it is. Or he'll do the 2-point and a 2 1-pointers, and I will just pick the ones right next to it. But that ability to be able to have those things printed out, same with using the general rules, having the major and minor actions. If you've got players, you might have players that don't want the durable sheet. They want to take one of these things home. Maybe their character's in a 3-ring binder. You can just print these off, hand them to them, and then they've got just those quick reference stuff ready to go. So both for the ability to print and manipulate as you see fit, and for being able to have the quick references available on a tab on my computer, I love having the electronic version, even though I've already got the print version.
So here's the thing. Ren, our buddy Ren, says, I've been considering buying a second one, and that absolutely. But wait just a minute, because we're doing a giveaway, right?
Yeah, we totally are.
What do we want them to do?
So I'm going to lean on you to tell me what they should do for the first one, Troy.
Oh, you are my favorite. Let's see. For the first one, you know what? I really am actually pretty impressed. I mean, our community is amazing anyway. But I don't know if I should reward a comment that already sort of made me laugh, or if we should go with like the first nice thing that somebody said. That's a difficult one. Well, we've got a few to give away. If there's any thoughts from folks, oh, hey, I want to say, is this Chris? I hope it's Chris. It's XRIS says, hey, from the UK. Also, we've got Chris from the UK. We got UK in the house today. We've got all kinds of friends here. Coral's here as well. Oh, yeah, saying thanks for doing thing like sharing information. I appreciate when people appreciate that. I'm trying to think of what we should do for a giveaway and how we should frame it.
For the first giveaway, everyone who's watching, who's doing comments, tell us how you would use a giveaway to spread word about Fantasy Age and Green Ronin and hook new players or convince existing players to buy more stuff, and just appeal to our filthy lucre side, right? Just tell us if we give this to you for free, what are you going to do that will make us glad that we gave this to you? And what is the thing we're giving away, Troy?
We are giving away a one print version of the GM kit, and then a PDF version.
All right, so let's start with the print version. Tell us if we give you a print version of the GM kit, right? And I presume that we're unfortunately going to limit that to the continental US for shipping purposes. Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm so sorry, my friends.
I tell you what, I will say now, since we have someone watching from the UK, I will tell Troy, let's give them the PDF version because we can't send you the print version.
I like that. Wait, we just give it to them?
The PDF? Yeah. I mean, they're watching at 10:20 at night on YouTube. I think that's impressive enough for the moment.
All right, friends, UK friends, let's talk, because I've got a code for you that will give you the free PDF.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's very generous.
So ping him. But for, let's see, I would give it to one of my players to encourage my player to GM. That's a great start. We've got good evening from Greece. Wow, woohoo! We're in Dungeon
Greece.
Team. That's great.
Yeah. Well, here's the question: if we got someone from Greece, do we need to do the same?
Yeah, I say we send our friend from Greece a free PDF of the GM kit. I'm 100% in favor of that.
Listen to that. So, Dungeon Master Adamantine, you as well as Chris and who was our other Euro pal, looking for your name, and you are Chris. That's right. I'm sorry, Chris. There's Chris, Chris, and Chris. Yes. Nice. Okay. Well, so you all of you are going to get a copy of the PDF.
So far, Chris Lawson. Let's see. So far, Chris Lawson's the only person who has told us.
And he's from the UK, so. Well, you know what? We can let this simmer for a bit. People may be marinating. They may be writing up something particularly incredible. So, is this an industry standard?
So that's an interesting question. There are multiple XRS is Chris. They're the same person. Well, great. They're definitely going to get the PDF, but we still need someone to get the physical version. Someone in the continental US. So there are a couple of standards, and I think this hits all the best ones of them. But as I said, this one is landscape format. So if you're looking at the height on the table, it's like this instead of like this, and you can tell from where I'm sitting. And I'm bonking the microphone, that if I got something like this, you can't see the lower part of my face. And if I was a shorter person, which, you know, my wife is running a game for us and she's not as tall, it can cut off your mouth. That can make it difficult for people to see you. That can actually be an accessibility issue. I'm slowly going deaf, so I appreciate being able to look at someone when they're talking and pick up those extra visual cues.
Same, so
those are the two standards. I like landscape better, and this is landscape. It's one of the early landscape ones. Player aids are not, player handout cards are becoming more common because they're so incredibly useful, but they are not universal yet. There are still GM's kits that don't have them. Useful charts on the inside, I think, is absolutely standard. And the only question is, which ones do you pick? And I have sat around dating all the way back to the D20 Star Wars GM screen in the year 2000. I have sat in many meetings where we tried to decide how much real estate do we have, how big can the font be, how small can the font be and still be usable and legible. And my answer to that question has changed over 21 years. And what information on here is actually useful.
I'll answer. I'll grab that, but okay. I'm curious. Right. I'm curious.
The other standard that is common that we didn't do with this is to have a short adventure. It's very common for the GM's kit to have a short adventure in it. And the reason that this one doesn't is multifold. First of all, there's a short adventure in the basic rulebook. So we didn't think you needed another short introductory adventure. There's already one in here. Right. Secondly, we've got a bunch of cheap, easy adventures that are available as PDFs online. On top of all of that, it really increases the shipping cost, and you only get a use out of it once, right? Once you've run that adventure, I mean, you can do it with another group, but for that same group, that utility is gone. So we thought using the extra weight and time and printing costs for some good, hardy, better than paper cardstock laminate player handouts, so that we've got and the combat tracker was a better direction to go. There is a short adventure in the Dragon Age GM kit, Chris points out, and they're absolutely right. There is one. That was a somewhat different use case, but it's absolutely there. And as we've mentioned before, while Dragon Age and Fantasy Age aren't exactly the same, once you're super familiar with them both, it's easy enough to use a Dragon Age adventure with a Fantasy Age group.
I love it. So we've got a couple contributions. I have one quick question for Brian. Brian, where are you at? Are you in the UK? Are you in? Let me know, because we'll be giving you a PDF as well. Coral says, I would use the lovely art to entice my in-person players to try a change from our usual game, to try Fantasy Age for the first time. Nice. And you know what? Coral is just down the street from me, because I am a gaseous being that lives in Seattle, and Coral is in Port Arthur, so an area I know well. Dungeon Master Adamantine says, basically, I've been trying to promote professional DMing as an actual job in my country. Right on. It's work, and people should, yeah, absolutely. I had a run at being president in 2020 for Esperos, which is a nonprofit club for promoting role-playing, fun, board games, and strategy games. I'll try my best to run a game for new players as an alternative for other well-known RPGs. Absolutely amazing. That's great. And Corey, with the brand new entry, says, I would give the GM kit to friends that run other systems that have never tried Fantasy Age, and hopefully give them the push to run a new campaign with the system. Nice. That's a pretty good advertisement.
It absolutely is.
Yes, Brian is in the UK. Great. And Chris says, I must admit, I actually have physical copies of 3 GM kits, Dragon Age, Fantasy Age, and Blue Rose. Nice.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. I dig that. Let's see. And Matthew Lee, I skipped over your comment. Matthew says, I'd be tempted to create an online tool with the content, make it searchable, dynamic. Okay, bring it, Canada.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that I hope we will do eventually with like specific virtual tabletops, for example, which don't think that we don't know that might be useful. Those things just turn out to be involved.
Well, Matthew, let me tell you a little story. In addition to being the disembodied voice to Owen Casey Stevens, nicest guy in the biz persona, I am also heading up the VTT stuff. And while it's a little different, say, than I think you're maybe talking to something a little more accessible or more, people can kind of check out on a website, which I think is legal. I'm sure. Anyway, but we'll have VTT resources just like this for all our games, and we are very close to making a pretty big announcement. I mean, literally, I can see it on the calendar. So, Chris Lawson says, not that I'm a collector or anything. Yeah, we all might be. That's one of the things I love about this hobby is that, it can so easily careen into, you start out with some books, and then one day you wake up and you're wearing a full costume. You've got a full costume, you've got doubloons and the whole thing. I love it.
I remember in the 80s and early 90s when television shows would show people role-playing around a table, they would often have the GM with a big cloak with a hood, and we'd all go, no one does that! And now, of course, there are dozens of streaming shows where the GMs and the players sometimes do that and much more. So, maybe instead of being terrible, ill-researched representations pandering to the most common geek archetype, maybe those shows were just ahead of their time.
That's right, exactly, like Star Trek. Okay, so Joe just says Blue Rose
inside of the screen.
We have it. Yeah, that's going to ask if we'll flip into the inside of the screen here, and that would be the back.
Yeah. So the back of the screen has charts and tables that are useful for the GM. And a lot of these, I think, are really helpful in reminding you how to do things ad hoc when the players do stuff you don't expect. So if Troy will hold it right there for a moment.
Yep.
For example, we've got things to remember about ability tests. That right there is half of GMing for Fantasy Age. Just having that, and if he'll scroll up a little bit, also we've got the DCs for basic tests and advanced tests, and those are set, right? So something's supposed to be of average difficulty, that's an 11, and you can just, if someone says, hey, I want to climb onto the elephant, you're like, well, that sounds like a hard thing to do. Okay, that's a 15. I want to climb onto the gazebo. All right, well, that's average. It's 11. I want to climb onto the step ladder. Well, that's routine. So that's a 7. And that just that quick terminology right there, that tells you the vast majority of what you need.
Well, what would be a nigh impossible, test? Like, what would you be? What ability would you be trying to? What thing would you be trying
for
to
nigh
do
impossible?
Yeah.
So, for example, I want to climb up the inside of the waterfall's rock face.
Oh,
Perhaps not technically impossible, but wow, is it going to be difficult? And
that's right, yeah.
I, for example, tend to watch shows like Shoot the Moon Down. Chris Lawson's asked if Shoot the Moon Down is nigh impossible, and the answer is unless you have a moon killing bow, then it's not nigh impossible. It's just flat impossible. And we cover this some in Fantasy Age, and we cover it at somewhat greater length in the core rule book, which we're still working on putting out. If someone asks to do something and you, the GM, are clear that that is just not possible, then you just say you try to do that and fail. I don't care what you roll. That isn't a thing that can happen. It's not an issue at all. Whereas when someone tries something that you're like, okay, so you want to be on the unicycle firing the machine gun while rolling across the tightrope blindfolded. Technically, that could happen. It's not impossible, but wow, is it maybe even nigh impossible? Doesn't quite do it, right? Maybe I would, but the thing is, we're talking about a 3d6 plus ability plus test, right? So, and this is a bell curve with 3d6. So when you're looking at something that is nigh impossible, you already have to have a +3 or better bonus and be rolling, for +3 and 18. So
I have a question for you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the basic test difficulty goes from routine to nigh impossible, and then the advanced tests go from easy to formidable, and then stops there. Is there why that sort of difference?
So advanced tests are for things that are going to take you more time to accomplish, and basically the idea is when you're doing an advanced test, you're talking about trying a task that overall is going to take a lot of time. So if it is, I'm going to, while blindfolded on the unicycle, fire the machine gun, and where I got a machine gun in Fantasy Age, I'll never know, across the tightrope, you might pull that off once. But when you're reaching imposing and nigh impossible, those aren't things that you're going to accomplish over and over and over time, right? So if the GM says it's a 30-foot long tightrope, make a check. That is different from saying it's a 3,000-foot long tightrope. It's an advanced check. You've got multiple times of falling. You just won't pull that off. So formidable is as difficult as an advanced test as you're going to pull off.
That makes perfect sense. I'm checking out some of this, like a murderous hazard. I'll say setting up a live stream, it feels pretty murderous, at the very least harrowing.
Well, the damage there is to our self-respect, not to...
True, and maybe our reputation.
It has been suggested that the machine gun came from the gnomes. Certainly gnomes might. And there's Jason Waltman. Hey, Jason. So that's one screen, and all of that whole long discussion is just one inside panel. All right, going to the next panel.
So great.
Again, we've got your combat stunts, your spell stunts. For general reference, we wanted the GM to have their own stunts and not have to have one of the player aid cards, because we want you to be able to pass those out to players if you've got the physical version. So it lists the variable actions, minor actions, major actions. It's got the stunts. So go ahead and keep going, Troy. So we talked about the stunts and how brilliant they are earlier. Scrolling, and we're scrolling. All right. Up just a little more so we can see the top of these. So here are some common pieces of equipment. The missile range, weapon ranges. Frequently, when you're looking at an encounter, it'll just say, here are 3 bandits with short bows, and it does not necessarily tell you that those short bows have a 16-yard short range and a 32-yard long range. So that's the sort of thing that can be easy to just look up. The weapons and armor and shields, frequently people go shopping. Frequently people pick things up in combat. A maul does 1d6 plus 3, but that means that plus 3 is part of the maul. If you're looking at someone who's got, as an NPC write-up, who's doing 1d6 plus 6 with a maul, you're not sure, is that plus 6 because a maul is 1d6 plus 6, or is it plus 6 because they've got a strength or a fighting bonus, or do they have a talent, or do they have a specialization? So for quick reference, it's not at all unusual if someone gets disarmed or someone thinks, well, the maul is going to be better at taking out the construct made out of water balloons. So I want it, and I will take it, and that just lets you get that damage reference quickly. It can also be useful when people pick up things you don't expect them to, right? Like, they might say, okay, I am going to throw this rock at them. And you're like, well, all right, it's a big rock. I think that big rock probably does as much damage as a 2-handed maul. And then instead of having to flip through the rule book, that kind of information for ad hoc decisions is right there at your fingertips.
Nice.
Right? And it's the same thing with armor, right? If light leather, heavy leather, light mail, if someone's like, hey, I will grab the metal plate off the top of the serving tray that you described, the great big ornate one, and I will use it to defend myself. And you can say, okay, that's the equivalent of a medium shield, but it takes both hands. Treasure category.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so experience point rewards and treasure category. Later in life, you may have this stuff memorized, but especially when players, someone says that well-known construct, the water balloon construct, of course. Early on, when you're ad hocing an encounter or you're running something that you've adapted, it can be super useful to just have that as a reminder. Okay, this was an average encounter. It's 250 experience points. They have robbed a common merchant. They get a paltry treasure. I'll roll 3d6 silver pieces. That lets you do a lot of this stuff ad hoc off the top of your head, and that's the third panel, right? So it's the crucial stunts. We could have done with other stuff, but I really consider the stunts and the general rules for tests and advanced tests and hazards and this to be the things that you're most likely to need when you are simply doing stuff that you didn't have pre-planned, right? So Rand said, my game has reached the point where I have to use test difficulties past nigh impossible. That can happen, right? Someone can. I mentioned that nigh impossible might not be the top, but you can tell that the next category up would be 3 higher. So that is the utility of the inside of the GM screen. And again, I like having it around just as an electronic version, even though I've got a print version, so I can have 2 things going at the same time. And if you're someone who doesn't want the physical space of one, picking one up electronically, you saw just Troy scrolling through it, how easy it is to find and reference the things that you're looking at most often.
Very well laid out. Super easy to track. A question for you, Owen Kesey Stevens, is are there things that you wish could be added, or things that, especially kind of coming up on we're introducing some new stuff to the mix? Is there anything that you would hope to kind of refresh if you had an opportunity?
I will, when we're finished with the book, I am reasonably sure we'll do eventually a new GM's kit. I personally would like actually more player handouts if we can pull that up, and that can be a form factor, weight, shipping kind of issue. But, if we're expecting groups of 4 or 5 players, at GM, it would be nice if we had enough cards in one kit to give them out to 4 or 5 players. I personally, I am the sort of person that sometimes gets overly anxious when a game is going a direction that I don't expect. I almost wish we had a big Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy "Don't Panic" on the inside of the GM screen. I don't know that that's actually got general utility, so that might just have to be something I do with a sticky note. There are target number 23 category. How did you do that? Yeah, I can see that. I could see having a sort of generic set of monster entries to just say, here is a generic set of stats. We're not saying what this is, but this is a minor threat. This is a moderate threat, etc.
So we have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're doing my job, my friend. Not that I mind at all, but Corey asks, any chance the Green Ronin will be at the Origins Game Fair this year in Ohio? And yes, a very good chance. To be honest, like we're investigating all of the reports of the Delta variant, and we're thinking about that stuff, and we want to be very safe. But we are scheduled to be both at Gen Con with a booth and at Origins. So we will be there, and I know that we have plenty of people who are our freebooter team that are going to be there as well, running games and those sorts of things. But if you have an opportunity, stop by the booth. Tell them Troy sent you, and you'll get a hearty wave. I was going to say handshake, but maybe not. But should that change, and I want everyone just to be real clear, should that change, we'll let you know. There is a possibility that it could, because ultimately, we want to make sure that our Ronins and our fans are safe and healthy, and we just don't want to risk that. So
yeah, right at the moment, we've got plenty of fully vaccinated staff, and it looks like proper precautions, which we can trust. The ownership is going, and it's their company, and they want to make that call, and I think that's great and reasonable.
Yeah,
I, for example, will not be at any of these conventions this year for various reasons. But the Green Ronin ownership is being really smart and cautious and considerate about how they're handling this. So right now, it looks like there's a safe way to do it. So they're planning on doing it. If it looked like there wouldn't be, they would obviously put life and health and limb of themselves and their fans and their employees above the opportunity to sell products at the convention.
So our friend Jason says, Owen been very helpful to me in the past. Every day he's helpful. He's just that kind of a helpful friend. You're a helpful friend from afar. So Chris mentions one of the Chris's who is all the same. Extra stuff on the Blue Rose might be worth adding: health, healing, fatigue, and resting. So yeah.
There's as I said, we'd go over it definitely. Because for those of you that weren't part of the playtest, you're aware that there is a question about how we're going to handle things like stunts on player sheets and the GM screen for the core rulebook, because there are some stunts that you can only take if you are a high enough level in a specific class and you've taken a stunt boost. And that means that there would be more stuff if we were listing it, and we will have to ask ourselves what is the proper way to do that. On the other hand, like the basic number of combat stunts were cut down a little bit, so we might save room there. But I do think it'll deserve taking a look at. Most of it hasn't changed, right? We're not changing the price or the damage of any of the weapons. We're not changing what the various test difficulties are. And if you were to use the old GM kit with the new core rulebook once it's out and use those stunts, you're not breaking anything. That'll work just fine. There would just be some options that wouldn't be listed. So none of that is going to cause a compatibility problem, but a new rulebook is definitely a good time to look at products like this and say, hey, since then we've done an Expanse GM screen, and we've done a Modern Age GM kit, and we've done a Blue Rose GM kit. What did we learn from those? What's the feedback then that maybe would be a better choice than what we've done?
I'm watching your eyes as you're looking at the screen. I didn't know if you were reading your caption or not. But when you looked over there, you were like, what? What? But it says, want to win a prize? Write a fantasy age poem for Owen to read. Great idea. I love it.
And remember that haiku is a poem. So
that is true. Yes. And brevity is the something to getting a quick prize. Chris Lusta says,
that's longer than the original quote, Troy. You shouldn't take the brevity quote and make it longer.
I know. I don't really know.
Why did you say brevity good?
I love it. Absolutely. Let's see. Chris Lusta says, I would get an advanced GM kit. Well, Chris, I think you might be a GM kit collector. So we might just do like a bunch of different GM kits for you and just sell them for $1 million each.
Hey, Troy.
Rich.
Hey, Troy.
Yeah.
On Facebook, Stan has sent us art.
Stan, you a beautiful man. Well, I'm going to dive over there. And while I do that, Owen, if you wouldn't mind doing a little, a little song and dance while I get this
Yeah,
ready.
I am not doing a song and dance, but I will certainly entertain people while you're gone. See, Troy likes throwing things at me to see whether or not I will have no idea how to handle them without realizing that as the face of the show, I can pretty much do whatever I want without having to worry about whether or not I am fulfilling Troy's remit for that section. So
that is very true. But I shall.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. The thing that is most important for a GM that so for people that aren't watching real time, the two artists that I work with most often, Stan Brown and Jacob Blackman, are having a debate in the thread. Dang it, Stan! Wahahaha. So I am being amused by it, and they're great people and great artists and good friends.
And good friends. Oh yeah, absolutely.
If there was a thing that I could add to the GM screen that I can't, right? If there was something I could put in there, I would love to be able to put in a sense of it's okay. I wasn't really joking about that. Don't panic. All right, so here's the cartoon. A table of what restaurants are open after 11 and delivered to this neighborhood. This GM screen really is useful. And that is, by the way, just the URL to DoorDash these days. I gotta say, I was shocked here in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where I have spent most, though not all, of my life. Until 2:00 in the morning, I can have cheap, high-quality pizza or submarine sandwiches delivered from Pizza Shuttle, and I don't own any Pizza Shuttle stock, so this is just me saying they're good, they're tasty, they're fast, they're cheap, and they almost always get it right. I was shocked when I moved to Seattle, a larger, more major metropolitan area, and couldn't get a decent, cheap pizza delivered until 2 a.m. That was not an option. In fact, pizza delivery was kind of thin on the ground, honestly. There were a few national chains and then a couple local people, and mostly none of it was as good as Pizza Shuttle. So that is one of the things that I appreciate, but I'm aware that we would not probably be able to stick on a GM screen. But I wish we could somehow boil down the essence of, look, being the GM, you're another player. You're there to have a good time. You are there to laugh with people. And if you screw up, it's no more a big deal than if anyone else screws up. It doesn't have to be this great, big, weighty thing. I personally, when I am learning a game for the first time or I'm teaching someone a game, it is not unusual for us to play a guard game with the cards up so that everyone sees what everyone has so that we can make the moves and discuss it. I'm a big advocate of doing things like that as the GM, right? To say, hey, I want to GM a game, but I'm not going to hold any secrets from you, the guys, this first time around, because I want your feedback. And if you know how the game works better and catch when I'm wrong, then you can say, for this encounter, I've decided to throw you against 3 minor threats, and here are the ones I'm using, and these are their stat blocks, and I think I'll have them do this thing. And just let the other players follow along for a session or two so that you all get used to how that goes. I personally find that a great way to bring someone into the GMing experience, because a GM kit is most useful if you're actually going to GM. And half the people that we're talking about what they would do if you give them a physical GM kit, we're talking about giving them to someone else to try and get them to run a game. So the other thing you can do is just encourage people to run a game and, promise to be, hey, I'll play a simple character and I'll keep my player knowledge separate from my rules knowledge. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to tell you where to find the answer, or just ad hoc it and not worry about it. Encourage them to use you as a resource going forward as they're trying to get a game off the ground. And if that works, that's one more game you get to play in. I am super fortunate in that here in the gaming group that I've been gaming with for 30 years here in Norman, all but one of the people I game with run games all the time. So we round robin all the time. And the one person who doesn't run games provides this beautiful game room. So it's not like he's not doing his share. But the most important thing that you can't find in a kit is just the willingness to jump in and try to GM. And all the kit's trying to do is save you a little time and a little stress and go neatly through the things and remember the most important key features, right? If you say one day that climbing a 15-foot ladder is a test number 11, and the next day you say it's 13, and someone asks you why it's different, you can just say, hey, look, this wasn't as well constructed a ladder.
Right. Yeah.
There is no wrong answer with these things. Just try and have a good time with everyone.
Well, hey, real quick, I know, Chris, you had joined us today. You had asked before the show started, you had a question that was about Trojan War, and I wanted to give you some space. So we're running quickly out of time, as is often the case here at ThursdAGE.
Yeah, we really are.
We really are. And then we've also got to figure out who gets the print version. I have a pick, but I want you to pick.
Well, that's okay. I want you to pick.
But I want you to pick.
All right. So what's Chris's question?
Chris is going to type it up and share it, and then So while he's doing that, we'll give it away. We'll do a giveaway. And I got to say, I really liked everybody's answers, but our generosity really sort of narrowed that list of folks, and I've got to say, can I give away 2?
Okay, Troy, this time you can give away 2. You've been good, so we'll let you give away 2.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. The first one is going to go out to Coral. We're going to send Coral a print copy of the GM of the ThursdAGE GM kit. Coral, for many reasons, but one of them being I find you quite charming, and you're here in Washington State, so why not? Now, the other one, and I'm not sure if this is going to work because I can't remember if this person said, I was searching as I was sharing my superlatives for Coral for any hint that I might be doing this wrong, but who knows? If I am, then, whatever. We'll do it live. Hey, Corey. I like Corey Velasco.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure if Corey was in our orbit or outside of the States, but Corey, do let us know. For folks who have won something and or have questions about something, have thoughts on things that we could talk about in the next show, whatever it may be, send a note to let's play at greenronin.com. That's LETSPLAY at greenronin.com. And we'll get you your code. It'll get you your free loot. Just, send a note and say, I won a date with Owen. And then we'll fly you out to his home and he will entertain you.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That said, right, if I go to conventions next year, we might do a thing about getting together and meeting some folks and possibly even running a game next year when we would at that point also have the new core rule book. So no promises, but I'm not saying I don't want to meet you lovely people in person, just not this year and not at my house. And Corey says, hooray, I'm in the States. So Corey,
nice, fantastic.
Let's play at greenronin.com.
John Cooper says, you rock, Owen. I agree. Let's see. Did our buddy type in his question? No, I don't see it. I can jump over and look for that. I want to be sure that we cover it because I think it's right in your wheelhouse. One moment, please hold.
Jason Waltman said he's waiting for Owen's Pulp Age game. You gotta know that I want to write and run a Pulp Age game, right? There's this truism that I'm going to tell the truism while. Stephen Jones says, Owen, do you make stunt cards for your players for special stunts you add? Yes, I do. That's a great question. So I'll worry about the truism some other times. This is better. So when I add special stunts, I always write them up in advance. And as an example, I did a fight that was occurring in the bazaar, the market, of a major town. So, there were baskets and stuff hanging and there were friendly citizens nearby. And so I had literally written up a series of stunts on slips of paper and I had them and I'd shuffled them. And every time someone got stunt points, they could do a normal stunt, but I would also hand them a piece of paper that would have a 1 or 2 point stunt on it. That they could do, but just this once, because that's when the circumstances came up. So you would have something like, hey, you can cut a rope that is holding a bunch of salami in a big net over an enemy's head, and they will be entangled for a few rounds. Or You can give the high sign to a friendly local villager who will hit them in the head from a frying pan out a window. And in fact, the frying pan attack was so popular that I turned that into an actual NPC who people called upon more times because they were having a good time. And she was literally lobbing tea kettles and stuff out her window and beating and doing significant damage to the bad guys. But that was the case where I'd written those things out so that I could pass them to players and say, hey, this is currently an option, right? If I was doing a fight in a bar and there were options for slamming chairs over people or scraping them along the bar top so they break all the bottles, whatever, the dropping the chandelier on them, for all those things. All right, Chris's question is here, so we'll get to a sec. I write those out so that they've got access to them and can read them. All right.
All right. So did Chris write his question out?
Yeah, so here it is.
Okay, great.
My question. I have a question concerning the arete talent from page 14. If I understand it, it seems really, and I mean really, powerful for talent, so I'm wondering if I'm reading it correct. I understand that it's only for divine offspring, so maybe it should be this powerful, but even as a novice, it allows character to perform a 2-point stunt for free every turn, even if you don't roll doubles. If you happen to have to roll double, you get a 2-point discount on a stunt. It is super powerful. It is designed for divine offspring. So that's a case where you have to ask yourself, do we want to have divine offspring who feel like they are more than just mortals in this game? And if the answer is yes, then those things are there and available. Playing with talent stunts and talents that grant you stunts and cheaper talents and situational talents, that's an area that we're getting into to see how we can take the core engine of fantasy. Derek Benedict just said this is why age crits are so much more fun than other systems, because every stunt is effectively a form of crit. So yeah, we did mean for that to be divine offspring powerful, and you just have to decide, do I want that in my game?
Okay, awesome. And all right, nice. Chris says, perfect answer, Owen. It was meant to be that powerful. Just checking in, and I appreciate that, Chris. Chris also asked another question that I would like to pose to the chat as we begin to wrap up today's ThursdAGE, and that is, where do you go for age discussions? Where's your place? What do you have a Facebook group do you like? Do you have a Reddit group? Is there a Discord? Is there a I know that we definitely have our favorites, but I'm wondering from folks in the chat, where do you go? And so is Chris as well. So if you can, kind of rush to get your links ready so you can drop them in chat, and we will showcase them on stream while Owen reads us a story as we end the stream. I'm kidding. I
have a backup truism that I didn't even get to. So
let's do it. If you don't mind going over a couple minutes or so. So Jonesy, do me a favor, even like share a Discord link if you're so inclined. But Owen's going to share a truism as a way of giving everybody time to gather their links.
So the truism, and this comes off someone saying that they were Jason Waltman saying they were waiting for my Pulp Age game. It is a truism, and this is something that was first pointed out to me by one of the owners of Green Ronin. Game designers tend to love the idea of pulp adventure games and game settings. Pulp adventure games and game settings tend not to sell well. As a result, the market tends to have a lot of pulp adventure games and game settings that don't sell that well. So you've got to be really careful how you want to scratch that itch as a designer. Now, there are things that have been much more successful than average, right? There's an exception to every rule. Sometimes there are things like, Eberron for D&D that was very popular for quite a while and still has a lot of fans. That is more pulpish, but it's sort of mixes pulp aesthetic with pure fantasy aesthetic in the same way that Shadowrun mixes cyberpunk with fantasy, or I cannot remember the name of it, and I've played it all the time. The great fantasy horror game from Pinnacle, which is Deadwood, or anyway, whatever. So mixing in a healthy dose of fantasy is one way to do that. And that's one of the reasons why my Starfinder home setting, which I do on my blog, owenkcstevens.com, really wild west, has full magic load along with steampunk technology and such. And obviously, we are past time, so my warranty is expired, so I am losing the ability to talk. So,
that's right. We're going downhill from here.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Owen, thanks again. Another lovely ThursdAGE. I want to thank everybody for hanging out and chilling with us on our 4 millionth episode of ThursdAGE. And remember, if you want something, send a note to letsplay@greenronin.com and we'll get you set up. Tell me what you want, tell me why you want it, and tell me why you love Owen, and we will create a digital homage to the man. And maybe, oh, Slay, I'm sorry, friend. Yeah, you get a 4-minute episode, but for 4 entertaining minutes, we really gave you the 4 extra minutes.
Stan has correctly predicted that Deadlands was the name of the Old West horror fantasy game I could not come up with, which it's a great
real
game.
Close.
They deserve for me to successfully say the name of the game.
You were like Deadwood.
Yeah, like I said, I'm past my warranty for the evening. So
Let's Play is all one word. There's no apostrophe, no anything, no commas, or nothing. Just Let's Play.
LETSPLAY @greenronin.com.
Yep, that's right. Okay, well, so here's this. Did I say 4 millionth? I meant 4 millionth and 1. But guess what? Next Monday, we do a thing called Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We hang out with developers of Mutants and Masterminds. We talk to fans. We showcase new stuff. We share Patreon insights, all kinds of cool stuff. And you'll be able to check us out on Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific, in these same places, only with different faces. I think that what else we got cooking? We talked about some convention goodness. Boy, the Age Creators Alliance, that's cooking. That is something we are about ready to pull the trigger on. And so if you're waiting to do a submission, you might want to hurry. And then, as always, all things Green Ronin questions, accolades, invites to a podcast, or, maybe just a recipe for a delicious pie. Send a note to letsplay@greenronin.com. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody hanging out. Owen, as Jason Waltman says, say good night, Owen.
So before we go,
see, I knew that wouldn't work.
We have the topic for next week. We want to tell people.
Well, shucky darns, why not?
So tell people.
Let me get to the calendar real quick and pull that out, because otherwise I'll just make up a lie.
We're going to do a series of these. How do I use? So it was how do I use the GM's kit today, and you saw that we managed to squeeze an hour-long show out of 1 folding screen and like 4 inserts. So
absolutely, yeah.
Imagine what we can do with hundreds of pages to work for.
What do I have next is the Fantasy Age Companion.
Yep. I'm super excited to talk about the Fantasy Age Companion.
All right. Well, Fantasy Age Companion comes up next. And, at some point we should invite Ren to come hang out.
I agree.
And talk about the podcast. Ren, send me a note and let me know when you are available. And if you wouldn't mind, popping on, you can even be disembodied like me if you are so inclined. But with that, I think we're done. Great show today, my friend.
Thank you very much, sir. Your disembodiedness made it all work.
See, I'm here to be gaseous and fun. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Maybe mask up and keep yourself safe and healthy. And we will see you with some Fantasy Age Companion stuff next week and some other big news as well. Everybody have fun, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, folks.